Media outlets and politicians often condemn big money in politics. They argue that wealthy citizens have an unfair advantage because they can generously finance candidates and purchase ads to voice their views. But are these monies really the biggest in politics? Let's look at just facts. While discussing large sums of money and corporate involvement in politics, a topic often ignored is the media itself. Ironic, given the media's role in forming people's views about politicians and policy issues. Let's compare, for example, one media corporation to all Republican donors. According to Federal Election Commission data compiled by the Center for Responsive Politics, federal Republican presidential candidates, congressional candidates, and special interest groups spent a combined total of $5.5 billion in the latest presidential and congressional election cycles. Over this period, the New York Times Corporation had revenues of $6.6 billion, or 20% more than the entire Republican political machinery. Moreover, the Ochs-Sulzberger family has owned a controlling share of the New York Times for more than a century. Hence, measured by money, this one extended family has more power to speak than the combined donations of all U.S. citizens to federal Republican campaigns and causes. The New York Times Company is one of many corporations that own major media outlets like The Washington Post, ABC News, CBS News, Fox News, NBC News, Time, and CNN. These corporations are sometimes controlled by the world's wealthiest people. As CNBC recently reported, in just the past several years, billionaire Salesforce founder Mark Benioff bought Time. Billionaire Amazon founder Jeff Bezos bought The Washington Post. The Emerson Collective, a social justice organization founded and run by billionaire Laurene Powell Jobs, the widow of Steve Jobs, bought The Atlantic. You may be thinking, that doesn't count as big money in politics because it's just freedom of the press. However, the Constitution doesn't give journalists and media corporations greater rights to free speech than anyone else. The First Amendment prohibits Congress from abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, and the 14th Amendment forbids states from doing the same. That's the full extent to which the Constitution addresses these matters. As explained by the Cornell Legal Information Institute, despite popular misunderstanding, the right to freedom of the press guaranteed by the First Amendment is not very different from the right to freedom of speech. It allows an individual to express themselves through publication and dissemination. It is part of the constitutional protection of freedom of expression. It does not afford members of the media any special rights or privileges not afforded to citizens in general. What about foreign money? Although federal law prohibits foreigners from directly spending money on U.S. political campaigns, it doesn't bar them from owning shares in U.S. media corporations that endorse political candidates and publish articles, commentaries, and videos that influence public opinion. As detailed by the Congressional Research Service, there does not appear to be a federal statute prohibiting the investment of foreign citizens in United States newspapers and magazines. But does that actually happen? Absolutely. For instance, in 2015, Mexican multi-billionaire Carlos Slim became the largest single shareholder of the New York Times Company. He also loaned it $250 million during the Great Recession in 2009. According to the Times, Slim did this when the Times Corporation looked to be in peril as the world economy was struggling and credit tight. The same article described Slim as one of the world's richest people, worth about $72 billion. Thus, one of the wealthiest people in the world, a non-U.S. citizen, played a key role in ensuring the survival of a U.S. media corporation that has more monetary resources than all federal Republican candidates, the Republican Party, and Republican special interest groups combined. Yet the Times editorial board used its platform in 2012 to denounce people with big bank accounts and big megaphones who drown out other voices in politics. And we haven't yet touched on the biggest money in politics. In March of 2019, every Democrat in the House of Representatives voted to pass the For the People Act. Among other things, this 706-page bill allegedly aims to reduce the influence of big money in politics. According to the bill, these funds come from corporations, extremely wealthy individuals, and special interests. But in reality, the total political spending of everyone in the U.S. is a tiny fraction of the taxpayer money that politicians take from some people and give to others. Such welfare is a direct incentive for the recipients to vote for the politicians who promise and give it to them. For example, food stamps, which is just one of many major means-tested welfare programs, spent an average of $72 billion per year during 2015 through 2018. In contrast, federal government data shows that all federal candidates, political parties, special interest groups, and lobbyists spend a combined average of $6.4 billion per year during this period. In other words, this one federal welfare program spends 11 times more money than the entire nation spends on political campaigns and lobbying. Taking all federal welfare programs into account, this ratio rises to 109 times. Politicians and media personalities from Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders to Bill Moyers and Carl Bernstein frequently decry big money in politics. The same crowd also lobbies for laws to muzzle the political speech of others, while simultaneously employing the largest amounts and arguably the most influential forms of money in politics. I'm Amanda Reed Sheik, here with Just Facts. For thorough documentation of every fact in this video and more facts about this issue, read the article, The Real Big Money in Politics, at justfactsdaily.com.